Thank you, Zora Pastina, for raising such a nice son.
Yep.
We're learning
Don't do kibud aba'em. Sorry, Rabbi.
No, it's okay. We're learning Leilu Nishmat Zohar Badina, Neshama Shalem and Aliyah.
Amen.
Should be ambassador in goodness.
Just leave it so people can.
Neshama should be an ambassador of goodness and kindness for you and your family, and your children,
Thank you.
and your
תעשה השכבה רבנו.
siblings.
תדע את השכבה בעל פה. אפילו אשכנזית, גם כן.
כמלא רחמים ומצא מנוחה נכונה לכנפי השכינה במעלות קידושים וטהורים. נשמת זוהרה בדינה שהלכה לעולמה.
כן. איפה הספרדי? יש שם ספר ספרדי, דוד?
A little white job.
We should say it when we have, when we read the... Yeah, it says שהלכה לברו שנדבו צדקה ועד הזכרת נשמתה וגן עדן תהיה מנוחתה לכן בא לרחמים לסתיריה וסדר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרו בצורה חיים את נשמתה השם הוא נחלתה ותנוח ומשכבה בשלום ונאמר אמן.
אמן.
So the new sugya in Daf Yudaled goes through the concept of Tumor, speaks about Tumor, the transmission of the sources of Tumor, the transmission of Tumor, and the objects that are susceptible to Tumor, which are persons, utensils, foods, beverages. Let's see. Rabbi Hanina, Sagan HaKohanim, Omer, מימיהם של כהנים, the days of the Kohanim, לא נמנו מלאסוף הסבוס או שניתנו בבלד הטומאה. They never did refrain from burning sacrificial meat that had been contaminated by a derived tumor. Right? That's what...
So they burn.
Rabbi,
Burning it mean?
can you do? No, piscina no. Baruch wants us to do tever. He's asking if the object doesn't go totally, and he goes like this, no?
He wants to do what?
Tever to the.
Tovel, he wants to tovel the...
Yeah, in the lake, but the object doesn't go deep.
No, it should...
Can he goes like this?
He needs to make sure that it's completely
Inside the water, Baruch.
He has to let it go for a second and catch it again.
רבנו.
Okay, bye.
המרחם. המרחם למעלה בצד ימין.
וירחם על כל בריאותיו ויחוס ויחמול וירחם על נפש ואור השמה של האישה זוהרה בת דינה.
Only by itself. Yes. Yeah.
רוח השם תניחנה בגן עדן. היא וכל בנות ישראל השוכבות עימה בכלל הרחמים והסליחות וכן יהי רצון ונאמר אמן.
חזק ברוך השם שמולך.
אמן.
זה תזכור, זה הקיצור, זה אתה יכול לעשות כל הספרים. המרחם.
You know the sex
זה כאן עמוד...
onions?
המרחם הוא ירחם.
אני מאמין בתוך הלב שלי שאתה בחגים מתגעגע לתפילות הספרדים. אני יודע בתוך תוכי, לא יעזור לך כלום. אתה ספרדים, תשאר ספרדים, לא יעזור לך שום דבר.
It's hard to miss something that you don't know.
אתה צודק, you're right.
Miss it.
When you don't know it, you don't miss it. But when you know it, you're gonna
So
miss it.
Sunday we'll go again, Shlomo.
בעזרת השם,
Now I'm not interfering with anything on Sunday.
בעזרת השם.
So it says, as long as the temple stood,
Where you are, Rabbi?
in the beginning, so it says in note 13, as long as the temple stood, as long as there was Beis HaMikdash, and the disposal of Tumor and unfit sacrificial matter was the obligation of the Kohanim, meaning it was the obligation of the Kohanim to get rid of anything that was Tumor.
And the way they did it was through burning.
Seriously, I'll talk to you later about how to get Debbie.
Yeah, they had to burn it.
Right together.
Never did they
I don't know if I
refrain
will walk 2 hours.
from burning sacrificial meat that had been contaminated by derived tumor.
But none of them is bad.
Yeah, outside, but they had to get rid of it. So ima basu shanita v'avatuma. Together with the sacrificial meat that had been contaminated by an avatum, by avatuma. No, avatuma, or somebody's knocking. So avatuma is the first degree of tumor.
Tell them to come around this way.
We know if you had a chance to glance at the introduction, it speaks about a different level of tumor. It might be in the front door, who knows? So when it comes to tumor, you have rishon letumah, which is the one who is contaminated with the first degree of tumor. You have sheni of tumor. Sure. Vlada tumor, derived tumor, as opposed to av, is you have ava tumor is the father of the tumor, the first, the source, and the vlada tumor is like the son of the tumor, the second degree of tumor.
Which is less.
Yeah, but it seems like it's in between the first and the second, because you have sheni tumor and you have vlada tumor. So vlada tumor is like the child, as opposed to the father, avatuma, and you have sheni, and then you have vladatuma, which is in between the second and third, and then you have the third, shlishilatuma.
Ah,
It's like
five
this,
levels.
yeah, and then you have revi. Between shlish and revi, there is
6
nothing.
levels.
No, between shlish rishon tuma, vladatuma, sheni tuma, vladatuma, vladatuma, and shlish and revi. Yeah. 6.
Zohara
Yeah.
Badina.
So,
Zohara Badina.
Ima?
Ima.
Zohara bat Dina. Yeah, it's his mother. Yeah.
It helps the dog.
Shama shall have an aliyah.
Amen.
Mashiach now, she should
Amen.
come back with
Amen.
us. We'll
Yes,
meet
amen.
Zohar, Shochni Afash, she'll
Amen.
join us together in L'chaim.
Amen.
Amen. Leave a second.
It's good for the dog.
It's coffee with no milk. That's why you do.
Right, because
This is connected with Tchias HaMeisim. It says that it will be connected with Tahara. V'zorak telech mayim tahirim. Hashem says, I will sprinkle pure water. And once the concept of tumor is eliminated, then there's no death anymore, because the whole idea of death is associated with tumor. So Ava tumor, in our case, is the guy who has the first contact with, let's say, with the corpse, right? Vlada tumor, on the other hand, the second, which is derived tumor, he says a child as opposed to our father of tumor. Then there is the Rishon in turn creates a Sheni tumor. The Rishon creates Sheni, and so one contaminated with the second degree of derived tumor, or in short Sheni. This level is sometimes called Vlada tumor, a derivative of a derived tumor, child of tumor. In certain circumstances, the tumor can be transmitted still further, creating a shlishi and ultimately creating a revi. So let's see. In this case, the Mishnah tells us that the Kohanim never did they refrain from burning sacrificial meat that had been contaminated by derived tumor,
Right.
meaning by
Avatum.
in a way it's not avatuma,
Oh, derived.
derived
Right,
tumor,
that's the left
right?
one.
The vlada tumor, right?
Right.
And then it says ima boso shenitma be'avatuma. So they burned these two levels together, the av and the derived. They burned them together, av and vlad, the father and the son.
On the same day?
Burn them together, yeah. Im haboso shenitma be'avatuma. Af al pi shumesifin tuma tumose. Now what's the problem with it? Because the moment that you throw them into one fire, the vlada tumor has now new tumor. You're increasing the tumor. by
Because it's touching the Avatuma.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to, can the high priest do that, increase the tumor?
So
Is that the question? Is the question?
it's not really a question. It's a statement. The Mishnah tells us that's what they do. That's what they did. They did not refrain from burning both. Yeah.
Right, the mission, but what, the rabbi said something different. He said, oh, now it's increasing the tumor on the second one. So,
Right.
so.
He says
the
they did
statement-
it despite the fact that it's increasing the tumor. That's what he writes. Afal pi shemisif al tumor. Despite the fact that it adds to the
So
tumor,
what
they
does
did
it
it.
matter that he increases it?
You will see.
Yeah, right, I know.
Mom, what's up? It's early.
But
But-
when they touch this Avatuma, they will be contaminated.
Right.
What?
No, there's
But
no-
that was their job. Their job was to dispose anything that was part of the Kohanim's job,
Oh, okay.
and that's why the Kohanim had the private mikvah. They had a private mikvah to take care of any kind of impurities. It's like almost like where do you find the most amount of chametz? In a matzah bakery. You have the doughs, the leftover doughs, and it's like where do you find the most tumor? The Kohanim, those who have to deal with the tumor.
In baseball, there was someone named Babe Ruth. He got more home runs than anybody. That year, but that year, no one knows who had the most strikeouts.
Who's this? What talking about?
Him also.
Baseball.
Him also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but baseball was a game we watched. Now we don't watch it anymore.
Shmuel used to say that they asked him, "How come you make more money than the governor?" So he said, "I had a better year."
Yeah, right.
Hey, Bruce did it like the president.
The
The
president.
president, right. I had a better year.
Yeah.
A lot of people make more money than president.
Yeah, but not in
President's
those
only
days.
150,000.
In the time,
No, I think it's 400 now.
This is
Now it's 400,000 a year.
I believe so.
yeah,
So it went up.
and
I came here, it was like
Wait,
125.
plus they get a free card, chauffeur.
and we get
Housing.
Secret Service for all their life.
Right.
And then he gets that.
That's a
the
good
same
thing.
every
That's a
month.
good thing or bad thing. It might not be.
Depends if you're Bill Clinton or not.
Yeah.
So 400,000 comes, how much is a week? 4,000?
All right, let's go.
It's about 35,000 a month.
It's 8,000 a week.
8,000 a week.
And our president,
Doing
current
nothing.
president, gave it all away.
Doing nothing. We couldn't sleep at night. You're doing nothing.
Don't lose sleep
Trump
over
gave
it.
it all away and taken it in the graves of-
Also, don't try to become it.
Doing nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so easy. By the way, it's not easy to become this.
Rabbi said, it's
Of course,
true.
you have to spend so much.
Shmuel said that Trump gave all his money
Yes,
to the veterans who
correct.
died to be
Yeah.
buried.
Yeah, he doesn't take a salary.
He doesn't, no,
He
unbelievable.
didn't take.
He takes $1 a year, and the rest.
He gives away for.
He has to
whatever.
take a salary, so he take $1. Like Bloomberg used to do the same thing in New York City. He used to frame it. He gets $1 just to frame the dollar
Wow.
that he gets.
Clint Eastwood was a mayor and he was getting $1 every
He
week.
was? I didn't know.
Yeah,
$1 a
Clint
week?
Eastwood.
That's 4 times better than the president.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood was a mayor of
Yeah, some little city in California.
some city in
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So, Oisiv Rabbi Akiva ve'Omar, Rabbi Akiva added and said, Mi'imem shel Kohanim, in all the days of the Kohanim, lo nimneu mil'adlik es hashemen shenifsa betvul yom. Never did they refrain from lighting oil of teruma that had become unfit through contact with the tevul yom. So although it became in contact, tevul yom is someone that needs to go to, is someone that went to the mikvah but waiting for the evening
Nightfall.
Right.
to become pure. So if he touched the oil became tameh from this tvul yom. But they still did not refrain from using this oil, from lighting oil of truma that had become unfit through contact with the tvul yom.
Lighting means using it in the menorah. Is that what it means?
Yes,
Not just
Adik
burning it up.
Hashem, yeah. V'ner shenitma b'tmeimes, in a lamp. Not only that, they used also the lamp itself was contaminated by one who was tameh from a corpse. Afal pi shemoisifim tumos, the same statement, despite the fact that they added a degree of tuma to its previous tuma. Next statement. Amar, we also have to ask, what's the connection with all this to Pesachim? Right? Amar b'meir midivrei lamadnu, from the words we learn, shesoifim truma tahiro im atmei Pesach. Here we go. the connection, that we may burn the toher chometz of teruma together with the tomeh on the eve of Pesach. When you have to dispose of the chometz, whether it's tomeh or toher, they did it together. That's what Rabbi Meir said. This is not analogous. You cannot compare the cases. Rashi continues. Rabbi Yeshua, who disagree concerning related issues, agree concerning the case of Torah Chometz of Truma and Tameh Truma. That each is burnt separately. So Alman Nechleku. So what do they? Concerning what do they disagree? Concerning suspended Tumor, you're not sure whether it's Tumor or not, it's called Tluya, and Tamei Tumor, and Tamei Teruma, and Teruma that became Tumor. Rabbi Lezer said that they each should be burnt separately. Comes Rabbi Yeshua and says you can burn both of them together. That's the one that has a doubt whether it's tummy. They're both tumah. One is a doubt, one is for sure tummy. Mikdi, the Gemara says, let us see. So, shenitmu bevlada tumah mayavi. What is the tumah level of meat that was contaminated by a derived tumah, indirect tumah, right? What's the mayhave? What is mayhave? What is the tumah level? So the answer is sheni. It is shenim. When one burns it together with meat that was contaminated by an avatuma, and it touches that meat, mayhave, on what level of tuma is it now? The Gemara says still a sheni. It is still a sheni. For the meat contaminated by the avatuma, the first degree of tuma is a rishon. And by touching it,
The first one, I'm sorry, the first one after Av is Rishon?
No.
Yeah.
No,
Rishon
Av is Rishon.
Still.
Av is Rishon.
Abba.
Right.
And then
Because I
that's
think you
sheni.
said that,
And then you have the Vlad, the derived tumor.
right.
So now he's telling us that tuma, meat that was contaminated by derived tumor. You have a piece of meat
Right.
was contaminated by derived tumor.
So that's second.
What is it? The Gemara
Vlad
says
or
sheni.
secondary?
It's sheni.
Okay.
Now, when when one burns it together with meat that was contaminated by an avatuma, not derived tumor, first degree of tumor. We have two pieces of meat. One was contaminated by derived tumor. One was contaminated by avatum. Now I put them in one pot. These two Shabbat Shalom, 2 degrees of tumor.
Shalom. Square to Debbie.
Square for the davening.
So now what is it? I put 2 pieces of meat. One was contaminated by derived, and one was contaminated by an av. Now what? So the Gemara, that's the question the Gemara asks. So the Gemara answers, sheni. It is still a sheni. For the meat contained by an avatuma is a rishon, and by touching it, this meat becomes no more than a sheni. Sheni v'sheni hu. It was originally a sheni, and it is still a sheni. So why did the Mishnah says moisif latuma tuma? So if they maintain their identity, they maintain the level of tuma. Why do you say that you're adding tuma to its tuma? He's still preserving his level of tuma.
Yeah, which is it? Is he made
Whatever, it was av stays av, and the sheni stays sheni.
Right.
So why the Mishnah says that you're adding tuma to its tuma? So the Gemara says, what addition of tuma? Amar Yehuda hacha bevlad skina. Here we are dealing with meat that was originally contaminated by a derivative of derived tumor. Remember we said in the introduction, he says, the Rishon in turn creates sheni. So that means that one contaminated with the second degree of tumor is sheni. This level is sometimes called vlada tumor, derivative of a derived tumor, child of a child. In certain circumstances, the tumor can be transmitted still further to shlishi and ravi. So here it tells us We're not dealing with a derived tumor. We're dealing with the double derived. So it's the derivative of derived tumor by a sheni. The aval is shlishi. So it's just really Vlad Tuma is sheni and Vlad Tuma is shlishi. It's different names that they give. So we'll have Rishon to Ravi. Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Ravi. Rishon will be the Avatuma.
So
First,
so
the Vlad.
It's not a separate.
So that's what they're saying. That's what it's trying to say now. That it's just another name.
Oh, okay.
It says
It's not six,
Vlad.
it's four.
Yeah, you're right. Here we are dealing with meat that was originally contaminated by derivative of derived tumor, by i.e. Sheni. Go to Sheni. The aval is shlishi, so that it was originally rendered a shlishi. And by burning it together with Rishon, one raises it to Sheni level. So, seemingly, it sounds like the Sheni turns into Shlishi, and instead, turning into Shlishi, you returning it, keeping it back into Sheni. You're preserving its level of Tumah by increasing, by putting it next to Rishon.
So if you put Shlishi and Avatoma, Shlishi and Rishon everything become.
So that's a discussion of the Gemara. Is it really adding to the Tumah, or each one keeps its level of Tumah? Because you can say, you have to remember that the moment that you transmit Tumah, you're not transmitting the same power that you received. It's immediately reduced.
Step down transform.
It's a step down. Exactly.
So should become Sheni. If you put Shlishi with Avatoma, should become Sheni.
No. First, so let's look at the case that the Gemara tells. Rishon and Sheni. There isn't transmit Tumah. It's transmitting now Sheni. So it was already Sheni. So why did you say he's adding Tumah? He's not adding any Tumah.
Yeah, it's true.
So he says, no, because now Sheni you could have turned into Shlishi, and now you're kind of keeping it back. That's look. It says. No, he doesn't could have come. It's my words. He says, Vlad Askinan, we are dealing with meat that was originally contaminated by derivative of derived tumah by a sheni, so that it was originally rendered a shlishi, and by burning it together with a rishon, one raises it to sheni. Okay, so this is easier to understand. When you say it, we'll say it this way. It was shlishi.
Thank you for making it easy.
Yeah, I try. So he says it's shlishi.
The small student next to the big teacher, is there a connection? Is it bittul, or is it like, forget it? We're trying to make the connection. Sorry.
It's from the introduction of it, you can see that it's a little bit more intricate, the concept of tumor. But if you put a piece of, we said it was sheni and rishon in the same pot. But now, let's say it was shlishi and rishon. Okay? So, the moment that I put the rishon together with the shlishi turns into sheni. So that can fit the statement of the Mishnah,
right,
that you increase the tumor, because you turn it from 3 to 2.
What happened with the Rishon? Becomes still Rishon?
Yeah, he says Rishon. The only thing that changes is now that you threw into the pot the shlishi, you picked it up. You added more tumor to its tumor. Upgraded its tumor.
But you're gonna burn. What is important to do know this?
On one hand, you are correct. You're burning it anyway. But on the other hand, there is now a piece of meat that you intentionally put increasing its tumor.
Okay.
Our job is to decrease the tumor in the world, not to enhance it. So, and the same thing would apply to putting teruma that is for sure tome. We know it's the teruma it became tome, and the one that is a doubt if it's tome, and you're going to put them together. So the one that is a doubt is no more a doubt. That's for sure. And maybe we can take it into our to the case of chametz and matzah, because if I put a doubtful chametz together with chametz, the doubtful becomes for sure chametz. Let's see if that's where they're going with this. The Gemara asks that there should be that there should nevertheless be no added degree of tuma in this case.
No adding, you're saying, right?
Yeah, we try to say that he's not adding anything.
I learned this before.
But the food cannot convey tumor to another food. It says remember we said there are 3 categories of tumor. We have tumas adam, tumas kalim, tumas echlin, 4 degrees. Tumas adam, men, persons, you have utensils, you have food, echlin, and mashkin, and beverages, these 4 levels. So each one transmit tumor in a different way and has different levels of how it's being done.
And how it can't transmit also.
Yes. And what type of tumor it transmit. So over here it says a rule. What is the rule? That when it comes to tumor of food, ein oichel metame oichel. Food cannot convey tumor to another food. The Tanya. It was talking about maybe I should argue that food convey tumor to another food. Talmud Leimar, the Torah tells us, V'chiyu tan mayim al zera. V'nof al miniv losom olov tomehu. But if water has been placed on a seed, and then their carcass falls upon it, it is tome. Meaning that why the seed becomes tome?
Because the water transmits.
Because first the water touched it, and now it becomes susceptible to tumor, and when the carcass falls on it, now it's tome.
When the sheriff hits it.
Yeah, so if the sheretz would have touched it and it was dry, would be no problem.
Right. But when the
One of the reasons why we need to wash our hands when we eat fruits that are washed, because they're susceptible to tumor now.
The water.
Especially if they still have moisture or some kind of liquid on them. If you eat grapes, for example, and they are completely dry, there's no problem. If they have wetness on them, so the Gemara says that the phrase "it is tame" implied that the seed itself is indeed tame,
Also the kozyain.
but it cannot make something else. Yeah, but it cannot make something else of its nature, tame. Since a tame food cannot convey tumah to another food, when one burns the meat that is a shlishi together with meat that is rishon, it does not acquire any additional degree of tumah. So the question remains, why did the Mishnah say that there is you're increasing tumah? If food cannot convey tumah to another food, then you're not.
If they're dry, they can't convey.
Right.
But if it was wet, then. Right.
No, but in the case I only spoken about wet and dry because the Torah tells us the rule of thumb, how it happens. The original conception of tumah was done that you had a seed that touched water, and now the carcass touched it. Okay, now that seed cannot transmit tumah to another seed, to another dry seed. Okay, why? Because food does not convey tumah to another food. So if we take the 2 pieces of meat, one is rishon, one is shlishi, and I keep in mind the rule that one does not convey tumah to another, then why did the Mishnah say that you're increasing the tumah? There's no
change the state.
Exactly, it remains the same. The shlishi will remain shlishi, and the rishon will. So the Gemara elaborates, noting that the difficulty pertains only according to one interpretation of the Baita. Anicha Abai de Omar. All is well according to Abai, who said Loishanu lebechulin. They taught that a food cannot contaminate another food only regarding to chulin. Chulin is non-sacred food. Aval betruma vekodshim oisek hayotzibor. But regarding truma and kodshim, the rule is that a tame food can make something of its nature tame. So now this is exception to the rule. Because we said oichlin in general do not convey tumah. Suddenly over here, tumah and kodshim suddenly do transmit tumah to one another. Consecrated food with tumah, which is also consecrated, but different levels of consecrations, but they do transmit tumah to one another. ולרבדה ברבוד משמי דרבד נמי דאומר לא ישון על חולין תרומה. They taught the rulings only regarding chulin and truma. Aval bekodshim oisek hayotzeh boim. But regarding kodshim, the rule is that a tame food can make something of its nature tame. Moses Shapir, according to these interpretations of the Baita, Rabbi Hanina's statement in our Mishnah fits well, since Rabbi Hanina is dealing with meat of kochim. It is understandable that the shlishi meat acquired an added degree of tumor when it was burned together with the rishon, because it was meat of kochim. So meat of kochim transmit or is susceptible to tumor, and therefore the Mishnah statement that you're increasing tumor is correct. Ela leRavina mishmei de Rava d'Omar. But Ravina, in the name of Rava, who said, Mikro mole diva kosuv, Scripture has stated an unqualified verse teaching that lo yishna chul no shna truma lo yishna kochim, meaning telling us there's no difference between chule and truma and kochim. In all cases, the rule is eino oisek hayoytze boy. Tome food cannot make something of its nature tome. Ma'ika lamema, what is there to say? What additional tuma did the meat that was shlishi acquire when it was burned together with the meat that was rishon? The Gemara presumes that according to Rabbi Hanina's testimony, there was an increase of tumor under biblical law. The Gemara answers, and what are we dealing with here? The mashkin ba'de boso. It is with a case where there is a beverage together with the meat. Like you said, that is a rishon. The kametame mechamas mashkin. And now we're going into another category, because you're moving from ochlin to mashkin, from food to beverages. And when it comes to mashkin, so that the meat that is shlishi acquires a higher degree of tumah on account of touching the beverage. It says in 28, the beverage was on the surface of the meat when it touched the av hatuma, also known as gravy, right? So that it too became a rishon along with the meat. When the meat is burnt, the beverage is still on its surface, and it contaminates the other meat that is burnt together with it, raising the level of that meat from shlishi to sheini.
Rabbi, so every meat has this moisty.
The smoked meat, no.
The what?
Smoked meat.
Yeah,
Smoked
Like salami,
jerky and salami.
But every raw
What
meat,
do they call it? Biltong.
What?
From South Africa. There's something called biltong.
Biltong?
Biltong, they call it.
Oh.
I hope I'm saying it correctly. It's jerky, but it's a special thing with special spices.
It's aged meat, right?
Aged and dried,
Jerky,
and with special spices to it.
yeah, they
Yeah.
have kosher.
You give this, if you say to South African, I have real biltong, they'll climb walls
To get to it.
to get this.
so every raw meat has a chance to become, increase the tumor, because it has this moisty.
No, but mashkin is more than just moisture. Mashkin is liquid.
Beverage.
Yeah, beverage. It's liquid that they add, like they put wine on the meat and other,
okay.
Yeah.
water. So people who take meat, a piece of chunk of meat, they put it in a bag.
Marinate it.
Put it in a bag, and they take the bag and they put it in the water, so it causes it to be vacuum sealed. They close it, and then they keep it like this for like 35 days, 40 days,
Yeah,
and when it's
Aging it.
and it becomes dry,
yeah.
but deep inside it's still. I'll make you guys hungry, but
No.
that's the probably.
You know what, I keep,
And then you well, after 35 days, then you put it on the barbecue with all the.
I keep hearing about these survival meals that the goyim are doing. I'm thinking, how could a Jew do these survival meals?
B'shas adchak, it says sakona. If he's a life and death situation,
No,
a lot of
no. They're
Jews
saying,
in the Holocaust had to eat everything.
No, you don't get. Okay, they're saying, okay, we have to prepare.
Bologna and salami.
No, you don't get what they're doing. They're saying they're saving for the for the apocalypse.
Saving for a cloudy
so
day.
now they're saying to make kosher food that we could be ready for this.
What, the tuna, I guess,
No, but I'm saying
canned
the
food, yeah.
flesh, the flesh to have it.
My son sent me a picture. His wife was preparing meat for them. They had this huge ribs, and a line of them. It was, I think we're gonna have a barbecue tonight.
Sounds good, but not.
I sent it back a picture. My daughter made chocolate chip cookies, and she sent us a big box of them. We got it yesterday. I said, "You're showing me this was for you. Okay, let me show you your sister did. You know, for the mommy and tati. You know."
You had to see what they did in Argentina for like this, for Yantav. They did this whole thing with a barbecue.
Argentina?
Unbelievable when they went out to
They're big
that
meat eaters.
program.
They're tremendous meat eaters in Argentina. They didn't like to eat,
Yeah, they were 24/7.
but they didn't like us.
So the Gemara says, "Iachi." If so, we're talking about beverage. The statement of Rabbi Hanina that the Kohanim used to burn meat that was contaminated by a derived tumor, by sheni, together with meat, or shlishi, what we said before, together with meat that was contaminated by an ava tumor, by rishon, should have been worded differently. It would be more clear. Together with meat and beverages that were contaminated by an ava tumor. Why didn't you say it from the beginning? Why didn't you add beverage to the statement? Ella nehi de'ein oichel metame oichel midoraita. Although food cannot convey tuma to another food under biblical law midoraisa, miderabbanan miu metame. But under rabbinical law, at least it does convey tuma to another food. So Rabbi Hanina taught that it is permitted to burn sacrificial meat that is a shlishi together with sacrificial meat that is a rishon, even though it will become a sheni rabbinically. So he says it's rabbinical. That's why you're allowed to do it. You're increasing tumah, but only increasing tumah rabbinically. You turn the third degree to a second degree. And why did you? Because rabbinically, food can contaminate food. Can transmit tumor to another food. So the Oisiv Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Kiva added in the Mishnah, in all the days of the Kohanim, never did they refrain from lighting. When we learned, the Mishnah said oil of Tumor that had become unfit through contact with a Tvul Yom, in a lamp that had been contaminated by one who was tameh from a corpse, which is the first degree of tumah. Although by doing so they added a degree of tumah to its previous tumah. It was a tumah of Tvul Yom, which is not a serious tumah. And then you have a tumah of a corpse, which is
The worst.
so the menorah itself, the kli itself, was tameh through corpse, and the oil was tameh through a Tvul Yom, and they put it together. The Gemara analyzes Rabbi Kiva's testimony in light of its previous explanation of Rabbi Hanina's testimony. Mikdish shemen shenifsa b'Tvul Yom may have. What is the tumah level of oil that became unfit through contact with a Tvul Yom? Tumah level of oil that became unfit through what level am I calling it? He said shlishi. It's a third degree. V'chimadlikli b'ner shenitma. And when one lights it in a lamp that was contaminated by one who was tamei from a corpse, what type of tumah is it? Sheni. So we have sheni and shlishi. What else are we for? Shlishi mutar lasoy soy sheni. That teruma, which is shlishi, may be made into sheni. Nothing's gonna happen. Turn the third degree to second degree. Hainuach. This is the same as that previous teaching of Rabbi Hanina. Why does the Mishnah state that Rabbi Kiva added to Rabbi Hanina's testimony? Amar Rav Yehuda Acha ben Elshomatech, we're dealing with a metal lamp. The Rachmon Amar, which the Merciful One said, Bachalal Cherem, Bachalal Cherem, the body of someone felled by a sword, died by a sword, which teaches a sword or any other metal implement that touches a dead body is itself like the body in regard to its level of tumor. The sword acquires the level of tumor of the body that it touched. It follows that a metal implement which touches a person who is tumor from a body acquires the same degree of tumor as the person. Again, it follows that a metal implement, which is the sword,
All right.
touches a person who is tummy.
Touches
No,
the corpse.
that's the tricky part of it here. He says the metal implement touches a person who is tummy from a body acquires the same who is tummy from a body, comma, acquires the same degree of tumor as the person. So
Full transmission, there's no decrease.
So the metal implement became tummy only because touching a person that was tummy from a dead person.
So I'm touching.
So Reuven is a soldier, went to war, killed people, not necessarily with a sword. He's tummy from tumor of mace. He came home and he's opening a new sword and he touches the metal of the sword. Now the sword acquires the same tumor as the person that touched the dead person.
It's him. As well, it touches.
Yeah.
So then,
As him.
then it
Correct.
goes.
Right, but
That's him.
so it's not a step down. It makes
That's what it seems like, yeah.
Then it
Areu kecholos, it's a-
Then it goes to it says the sword goes from Reuven to Yaakov. So he touches, the sword touches Yaakov. So Yaakov's has the same as.
No, but we have to see
No,
that.
but the sword.
We have to see the transmission of Kalim.
yeah.
But remember, there is different levels of the transmissions. It's
Right.
the difference between Reuven touching Shimon directly,
Yeah.
or Reuven's sword touches Shimon.
After the third one, it disappeared.
Because remember, utensils are called a different degree. You have a tumor of humans, persons, Adam, and then the tumor of Kalim, utensils, and then we have Ochlin and Mashkin, food and beverages. So now you are doing two things. You have a person transmitting it to a metal, and then that metal maybe will transmit to another person. It's another type of transmit.
It's a step down.
Yes, that's why he calls it sheni. A sword or any other metal implement that touches a dead body is itself like the body in regard to its level of tumor. It follows that a metal implement which touches a person who is tumor from a body acquires the same degree of tumor as the person. It acquires the same degree of tumor, but what about the transmission?
Is low.
Ve'avele tumor. So the metal lamp contaminated by one who is tumor from a corpse is an avatumor. Is the first degree. When the oil which had been rendered unfit by Tevul Yoim is poured into the lamp, which is a lower level of tumor. What did we say? What is the degree of tumor? We said, okay, what is the degree of tumor of Tevul Yoim? We said it's shlishi. If a Tevul Yom touches the oil turns into a shlishi. Okay? It's a third degree. V'kasovar shlishi mutar l'aseh rishon. And Rabbi Akiva that's the chiddush of Rabbi Akiva. Although the oil is a shlishi, but now you're putting it into a metal kli. That metal vessel is rishon. You're turning the shlishi into rishon. Third into first. And that's the chiddush of Rabbi Akiva, jumping to, and he said kasovar. That's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Shlishi mutar l'aseh rishon. You're allowed to turn shlishi into a rishon. He added to Rabbi Hanina's teaching. For Rabbi Hanina had merely taught that shlishi may be made into sheni. Comes Rabbi Kiva and says the shlishi can be made into rishon.
Av is the highest level, yes?
Rishon, yes.
Oh, so that's my question.
Yeah.
Av
Av is
and
rishon.
is
The same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rabbi, when a sword kills a man, the time that the sword contracts the tumor is only when it goes inside the body, or if the body has to be died already. Because if you say that the sword kill a man, at the moment he's not died, he's not
He's
made.
gonna be. He's gonna
He's
be.
still alive.
Right.
So at this time the sword,
No, but the soul
contracts
touches
tumor?
the
the
soul.
blood,
The blood is the nefesh of the person.
so it doesn't have to die. The moment the sword goes inside the body, already
yes.
contracts the tumor. Okay.
And the person that touches the sword immediately is tummy also.
Doesn't have to be a
That's why.
corpse.
That's why the way to do it is if you throw a dagger, what do they call it?
Right.
Spear.
Yeah.
If they threw a spear and they killed people with
Or a
it.
crossbow.
It says
Or
that
an arrow, or bullets.
it says Shimshon, he can throw one spear and it would kill so many people. It kept on going.
From this week's parsha.
Yeah. So we know now that we know the Chiddush of Rabbi Kiva. Umay duch k'de Rabbi Uda l'kma
Then
b'nei
it goes from
Shemoteches.
third to first.
Yes,
Is that the
yes, yes.
Sounds like a baseball game.
What
That would be-
Lavdil, what compelled Rabbi Yehuda to interpret the Mishnah as dealing only with a metal lamp? Now he's asking more of a technical question. Why did we use a metal lamp? Right? The oil went into a metal lamp. Why didn't you say any wooden lamp or whatever other lamps or
They don't makabel
Because
tumor.
if it's earthenware, then
earthenware lamp? Why specifically uses metal lamp? That's a question of the Gemara. My duchke de Rabbi Yehuda. What pushed them? What compelled them to interpret the Mishnah as dealing with a metal lamp? Nukme b'neshel cheres. You should have interpreted the Mishnah as dealing with an earthenware lamp, for example. Umay oisif. And as for the question, why did Rabbi Kiva add to Rabbi Hanina's teaching? He added the following significant point: the il was some Tumor v'Tumor, whereas there in Rabbi Hanina's case, the sacrificial meat, Rabbi Hanina spoke about two pieces of meat. So one was Rishon, one was Shlishi, or one was Sheni. The sacrificial meat was previously classified as Tumor, and it is still classified as Tumor. Albeit on a higher level of Tumah, you turn Shlishi into Sheni in the case of meat. V'lohacho posul v'tomeh. Here in Rabbi Akiva's case, the oil was previously classified as merely unfit, and is now classified as Tomeh. So you completely change its classification, right? You had it as unfit, and you turned it into Tomeh. Unfit and Tomeh is two different levels. But in the case of meat, you see they were both tumah to begin with, just different degree of tumah, but they're still in the category of tumah. Over here, you changed it to a new category.
Increase.
Yeah, from unfit to tumah.
What changes? You still can't use it?
Probably the way to fix it, the way to purify it.
Can you purify it or meat that becomes?
No, oil that is
Ah, the
tvul
oil,
yom.
okay.
Maybe with tvul yom, there's a way to still use it as disposing it. But once it's unfit, tummy, you have to dispose it. Once it's tummy, you probably have to dispose it. When it's unfit, might still be able to use it.
Okay.
so far you can use it. As far as we've gotten, it still could be used.
Yeah, it shows like he's still using it. But now we created a question by putting it into this metal lamp
Avatum,
that
yeah.
was avatum. Amar Rabba Masniz Kishise, our Mishnah presented Rav Yehuda with the difficulty which prompted him to interpret it as dealing with a metal lamp. Ma'ir the soni ner shenitma b'tmemes. What is the point of teaching this rule in regard to a lamp that had been contaminated specifically by one who was tummy from a corpse? What is the point of teaching this rule in regard to a lamp that had been contaminated specifically by one who was tummy from a corpse? So it's like almost changing the question a little bit, because we asked, why did you say specifically metal lamp? Now they're saying, why do you specifically say that the metal lamp became tummy through a corpse? For example, why do we use tamei meis, a corpse, use a sheretz? Ella, perforce. The novelty of the rule pertains specifically to a lamp contaminated with corpse tumor. In other words, everything in the Mishnah is precise. The reason why the Mishnah used metal, and the reason why the Mishnah used corpse tumor. What is Rabbi Yehuda is teaching us? Which is the thing that has a difference in its degree of tumah, between being contaminated by the tumah of a corpse and that of a sheretz. Where is the effect or the difference if you touch corpse or you touch a sheretz? both Ava Tumor. What's the difference? So he says, you must say that this is a metal implement. This meaning there's a difference between a metal implement touches a corpse or touches a sheretz, creeper crawler, dead creeper. So it says, yeah, when contaminated, but it has to be dead.
Yeah.
You're touching an alligator, maybe it's not yet sheretz. When it's dead, a lizard, when it's dead, it's probably a frog for sure. When it's dead, it's
Iguanas.
or I don't know if probably
It's a
also.
lizard. You said lizard.
A turtle is not so
Turtle, when
fast.
it's dead, I think it's also in the same familia of sheretz.
Yeah, is mishpucha.
of shrotzim. So see,
What is word for me?
Yeah.
when contaminated by
I know from Italian.
when contaminated by a source of corpse tumor, a metal implement acquires the same degree of tumor as the containment and the contaminant. What the source of tumor, okay? But when contaminated by sheretz tumor, it acquires a lesser degree of tumor.
Right, because corpse is the highest.
Is worse for metal. Metal touches the corpse, it has the same degree of tumor.
Yeah.
Metal touches sheretz, it has a different degree of tumor.
A lesser degree.
Lesser degree.
That's because corpse is the highest.
A higher. So Rav Yehuda,
He said.
with regard to all types of tumor, it says in 7, with regard to all types of tumor other than corpse tumor, a metal implement is like any other object and acquires a lesser degree of tumor than its containment. In contaminate. So it's only when it comes to a metal tumor metal implement has this only difference when in whether it touches corpse or touches sheretz. Rav Yehuda deduced that Rabbi Akiva was referring to a metal lamp, and that the point he meant to add is that it is even permitted to make a shlishi into rishon. Shlishi into rishon, because if the metal lamp touched a corpse, then it's the first degree of tumor. And then it touched the tevul yom oil that touched tevul yom. The oil is shlishi, and he wants to tell us his chidush that you're turning shlishi into rishon,
Okay.
and it would still be permitted
If the
because
oil
you took
touched
the
the
oil.
metal.
The oil is shlishi,
And the oil is touching the
and
metal.
you put the oil inside the metal lamp.
Okay.
Which is
The
other
metal lamp
tumor.
was rishon.
Yeah.
Why is it rishon? Because it didn't touch sheretz. It touched the
corpse.
corpse, and that's why it's rishon. And that's why the Mishnah specifically. So he's really, it's one shot kill two birds, because he's
Two birds with one stone.
two birds with one stone. Why? Because we asked him two questions. The Gemara asked him, "What's your chidush?" and why are you specifically saying metal lamp and corpse tumor? You could have said earthenware lamp
Sheretz.
and a sheretz tumor. Why you said specifically metal and why? Right? And the second question, what's your chidush? What are you adding? We already know that that if you turn 3 to 2 is not is okay.
You increase tumor.
You increase tumor, we already know it's okay. So what's your chidush? So he says my chidush is like this, that you can turn shlishi into rishon. Why is it rishon? Because sheretz touched specifically, it was metal. No, say because it's metal
Corpse.
and it touched corpse. Yeah. That's why it's rishon, and now we're turning into the oil. We made it into rishon.
Okay.
That's his chiddush.
It's so good when we understand. Yeah?
Amar Rava Shma Mina, we learn from this. Kasova Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva hold tumas mashkin atame achirim dorai. So the capacity of tame beverages to contaminate other things is biblical in nature. Why is it biblical in nature? This hakayach kerabonon, if you should think that it is merely rabbinical in nature that beverage contaminate others, is rabbinical, but under biblical law. You're right, that's the question that you're asking. What's the difference does it make to us if the oil is now third level or rishon? Ili psule gufe, if you will say that the difference, that if you will say that there is a difference in regard to rendering the oil itself unfit for consumption, it was already unfit for consumption. Apsil v'koi, why it is already unfit before being lit in the lamp, on the basis of having been touched by Tevul Yom. Perforce, the difference is that when it was shlishi, its tumor was too weak for it to contaminate foods. When it becomes to contaminate foods, and when it becomes a rishon, it acquires that ability. That's what you did to the oil. You made the oil
A bigger transmitter.
a transmitter. Before it was not a transmitter because it was only shlishi. It was too weak to make something to transmit the tumor. But now you made
Increase
it.
the tumor.
Not just increase tumor, but now it can transmit.
It's
We
like-
have one couldn't
It's like I
transmit.
said, the
Make
worst.
it capable to
It's like to
transmit,
say
yes.
the worst thing about sinning is causing other people to sin, because now you teach them the trick, right? You show them how to do it, so now they can teach other people.
Mitzvahs, Guerreros mitzvahs.
And the
the
opposite.
opposite,
Yeah. So it is implicit in Rabbi Akiva's testimony that Tumor beverages have the capacity to contaminate other things. It's implicit. It's not directly. It's not telling us directly it does it, but it seems like that's the issue over here. On what basis do you presume that this holds true under biblical law? Perhaps we can say that lighting the oil in the lamp accomplishes, in regard to enabling it to contaminate other things under biblical law, maybe under rabbinical law. Maybe it's not biblical, maybe it's rabbinical, that it can contaminate other. If the accomplishment is merely that the oil acquires the ability to contaminate other things under rabbinical law, what is Rabbi Akiva's point in speaking about lighting it in a lamp that is an avatuma, and thereby making it a rishon under biblical law? Even if the oil was lit in a lamp that is rishon or a sheni, it will also be considered a beginning of tumor under rabbinical law. That not, for we learned in a Mishnah, anything that makes truma unfit, anything that renders teruma unfit through contact, i.e., any sheni which makes teruma a shlishi through contact, whatever it is, sheni makes teruma shlishi through contact, metame mashkin le'istchilo, contaminates beverages to be a beginning of teruma. Meaning, if you have the power to touch teruma and to make it shlishi, you also have the power to contaminate beverages that they should become now beginning of tumor, except chutz mitvul yom, except for a case of tvul yom, who renders teruma unfit through contact, but does not render beverages a beginning of tumor. So again, when it comes to tvul yom, one second. So when it comes to tvul yom, anything that renders teruma unfit through contact contaminates beverages to be a beginning of tumor. Now the beverages can be the starters. Chutz mitvul yom, except for tvul yom. Why we said tvul yom is not a severe tumor. He's already went to mikvah and he's just waiting for the evening, waiting for sunset. So
So is he a lesser degree of?
yes, So he said, chutz mitvul yom, except for tevul yom, who renders tuma unfit through contact, but does not render beverages a beginning of tuma. He doesn't have enough power, enough tuma power, to make beverages beginners of tuma. He can disqualify, he can make them unfit, but not beginners of tuma. Under rabbinical law, oil that had originally been rendered unfit through contact with a tvul yom can be raised to the rishon level even through contact with a sheni. Why then did Rabbi Akiva state his rule specifically in regard to lighting such oil in a lamp that is an avatuma, in which case it becomes rishon under biblical law? It must be because he sought to describe a case in which the oil will acquire the ability to contaminate other things under biblical law. Rashmamina Doraisa, perforce, we learn from this that according to Rabbi Akiva, the capacity of Tomei beverages to contaminate other things is biblical in nature. Rabbi Meir said, from the words we learn that we may burn the toir chometz of Tumor together with the Tomei on the eve of Pesach. The Gemara analyzes Rabbi Meir's statement. Midivreim deman. From whose words do we learn this? That you're allowed to burn Sofek Tumor and Vadei Tumor together. Or Toher Chometz of Tumor together with Tomei. Midivreim deman. From whose words do we learn this? If you say that we learned it from the words of Hanina Sgan HaKohanim, I will retort, Mi Dome, is this case analogous to the case described by Rabbi Hanina? Oh, some Tome v'Tome. There, in the case of Hanina Sgan HaKohanim, in Rabbi Hanina's case, the Kohanim used to burn Tome sacrificial meat together with other Tome sacrificial meat, and merely added a degree of Tumah. However, Rabbi Meir sanctions burning the Toher Turuma together with the Tome and initiating contamination of the Toher Turuma. You creating now more Tome stuff. Not dealing with adding. Rabbi Hanina was dealing with increasing the Tumah. Over here you are creating new Tumah. Right. Rather, perhaps you will say that Rabbi Meir meant we can learn his law from the words of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara says again, Midome, but is this case analogous even to the case described by Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva spoke about Posul v'Tome. Rabbi Akiva's the case with the oil. He spoke about oil that is unfit, that was placed in a lamp that was Tome, and merely raised its classification from unfit to Tome. But you went so far dealing with Torah and Tome. So we have three cases. We have the first case is meat, Tome and Tome. You were just increasing it from third to second. We have the second case, that was the case of Rabbi Hanina. Then we have the case of Rabbi Akiva. The case of Rabbi Akiva is dealing with taking something that is unfit, the oil, and making it now Tome. You're taking it from unfit to Tome. Comes Rabbi Meir and he goes completely the other way, taking pure to Tome. Shall we say that Rabbi Meir holds that Rabbi Hanina's testimony in our Mishnah deals with burning meat that had been contaminated by a biblical avatuma, uvlad atuma derabon, together with meat that had been contaminated by rabbinical derived tuma. So we have one meat that was contaminated through avatuma and one meat that was contaminated through vlada tuma, which is rabbinical derived tuma. The midoraita toher ma'aleh, which is perfectly toher under biblical law, meaning the rabbinical derived tuma is biblically okay. Yet Rabbi Hanina taught that Kohanim did not refrain from burning the two meats in one pyre, whereas on the rabbinical scale, they were merely adding, on a rabbinical scale, they were merely adding a degree of tumor to the latter meat. On the biblical scale, they were initiating its contamination. So we'll continue, God willing, tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Same place, different time.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
No, I'm keeping this.